Good afternoon, beautiful people, and happy Thursday. As you all know, Zoran Memdani won the mayoral campaign in New York City. My thoughts are that Democrats will begin to lean more and more towards socialism with the promise of free, because apparently it is very appealing to young voters. However, I do hope he does a fantastic job, and I wish all the best for New Yorkers. Okay, with that being said, it is official that the Minnesota's governor's office just got called out for widespread financial mismanagement. This is coming straight from the new legislative audit covering Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan's office. Let's get into it. Welcome to Nellie Miranda.
Governor Tim Walz's office is facing criticism after an audit released today shows a dozen findings of financial mismanagement.
As always, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. So between July 2022 and December 2024, auditors found a dozen examples where the governor's office didn't follow the rules, failing to manage receipts correctly, botching employee timesheets, and making late or even inaccurate payments to vendors. In other words, chaos with your tax dollars.
Governor Tim Walz's office is facing criticism after an audit released today shows a dozen findings of financial mismanagement. Jason Rantelis shows us how Republicans and the governor's office are responding.
Newly released financial findings from the Office of the Legislative Auditor identified a significant number of instances of noncompliance and internal control deficiencies in the office of Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan. Between the period July 1, 2022 through December 31, 2024, quote, the office of the governor and lieutenant governor generally did not comply with the criteria we tested. The dozen findings in the report include lack of documentation, inaccurate payroll, overpaying employees thousands of dollars, and late payments to vendors. Minnesota Republicans were quick to jump on the findings Tuesday. Senate Republican leader Mark Johnson said, quote, it's no wonder massive fraud is exploding across state government. If Governor Walz can't run his own office with integrity, he clearly can't hold agencies accountable for the billions of dollars they manage. House Speaker Lisa Demuth recently announced her intention to run against Governor Walz. She said, quote, after years of allowing fraud to run rampant in state agencies, we're now seeing that the lack of internal controls and accountability measures extends even to the governor's office. The governor's office responded to the findings, saying they've resolved 11 of 12 of the report's findings and implemented its recommendations. In a statement, they tell WCCO they're grateful for the OLA's thorough review. Nearly all of the recommended changes have now been made, nearly half of which were resolved before the audit began.
Now, the governor's office claims that they fixed 11 out of the 12 issues and that they are grateful for the review. That is nice, but here's the problem. When the top of state government cannot follow basic financial rules, it sends a message down to every agency underneath that sloppiness is fine. And Minnesota has already paid the price for that kind of attitude. Remember the Feeding Our Future scandal? $250 million. Taxpayer money gone. Supposedly, it went to feeding hungry kids during the pandemic. Now, I don't know where these hungry kids were before the pandemic, but in reality, prosecutors say the money went to luxury cars, jewelry, vacation homes, and fake meal sites that claim to feed thousands and thousands of children didn't even exist.
In December of 2021, the FBI installed a surveillance camera overlooking this building just off Lake Street in Minneapolis. At the time, it was Safari Restaurant, which overall took in $12 million in federal child meal payments through Feeding Our Future. Safari's former co-owner, Salim Saeed, is on trial alongside Amy Bach, the Feeding Our Future executive director. Safari claimed to feed 4,000 to 6,000 kids a day. Its invoices and meal counts shown to the jury alongside the video. An FBI agent testifying that an average of 40 people came and went during the 6 weeks it was surveilled. The FBI set up a total of 12 cameras at sites claiming to serve extraordinary numbers of meals. Another was at a deli in St. Paul, also registered by defendant Salim Saeed, which claimed 1,800 meals per day. The video shown to the jury showed an average of 23 people a day coming and going. The jury was shown dozens of invoices, meal counts, and emails seized from Feeding Our Future's headquarters in St. Anthony. Some showed links to websites that randomly generated names and ages to create rosters of children who were served meals. Many were signed or sent by Amy Bach, who's charged with wire fraud, along with bribery for the alleged kickbacks that she received. Her defense attorney tried to raise doubt when it cross-examined the FBI agent that they didn't see the back entrance where it's possible meals left packed in trucks for delivery. He pushed back, insisting they'd still see congestion. To that volume, he said, I would say it would not make any sense.
That case became one of the biggest COVID-era frauds in America. And the kicker, Minnesota's own Department of Education had red flags. Massive spikes in reimbursement requests, impossible meal counts, and they still rubber stamped the paperwork. Now, this new audit proves what everyone with a brain has been saying for years, incompetence starts at the top. When the governor's own office is sloppy with receipts, how can he possibly keep his agencies in line? Republican Senate Leader Mark Johnson said it perfectly. Quote, sloppy accountability at the top breeds waste and abuse everywhere else. And he's right about that. You cannot preach fiscal responsibility when you are overpaying employees, losing state property, and mismanaging vendor payments. And it's not just the Feeding Our Future mess. We've also got the Autism Services fraud case, another multi-million-dollar scam in the same state, involving clinics billing for therapy that never happened. And to make it worse, some of those same providers were linked to the Feeding Our Future network. It's the same pattern: inflated invoices, non-existent oversight, and zero accountability.
It's a familiar sight in Minnesota. This exclusive video shows FBI agents walking out with boxes of evidence.
And that is absolutely something that our community cannot sustain.
One of two facilities raided on Thursday: Star Autism Center's office in St. Cloud and Smart Therapy Center in Minneapolis. Familiar because this is what it looked like when agents raided homes connected to the largest pandemic fraud case in the country. And new court documents show at least a dozen of the defendants charged for their role in the Feeding Our Future scheme owned, received money from, or were associated with autism clinics. In this case, the alleged scheme boils down to charging Medicaid millions for care they didn't actually provide. Since 2017, Medicaid reimbursement claims in Minnesota skyrocketed from just under $2 million to more than $250 million.
Insurance is driving what providers are providing as opposed to what patients need.
A major fear of Ellie Wilson, the executive director of Autism Society of Minnesota. According to the search warrant, many of the kids receiving autism services at Smart Therapy did not appear to be autistic. The warrant alleges Smart Therapy hired young relatives who had no formal education and who were usually just on their phones all day, even submitting claims for in-house care for people who were in Somalia, Jordan, and Kenya at the time. Do you think there needs to be more regulation to stop fraud from happening?
What we absolutely cannot afford is to take a step backwards.
So when you hear Governor Walz's office say, oh, we've already fixed it, we should all be rolling our eyes because Minnesotans have heard that before. They fixed it. They fixed it after Feeding Our Future. They fixed it after fraud exploded in the Department of Human Services. They fixed it after the medical billing scandals. But every year, the same thing happens again and again. And here's what no one in the mainstream press wants to admit. The culture of government under Walz rewards expansion, not accountability. Programs grow faster than oversight, and anyone who asks tough questions risks being labeled as anti-community or anti-equity or anti-immigrant. That is exactly why Feeding Our Future got away with it for so long, because officials were scared to audit groups that claim to serve minority or immigrant populations. Identity politics has become a breeding ground for corruption and fraud. And that brings me to something that we all understand very well. Good intentions do not excuse bad management. You can want to help people, feed children, fund therapy, But if you have no accountability, you end up helping scammers instead. This isn't compassion, it's negligence. House Speaker Lisa Damith, who, by the way, is now running against Walz, said accountability starts at the top. After years of letting fraud run wild, we're seeing the same lack of control in the governor's own office. And she is right about that. Leadership isn't just about photo ops and press releases. It's about systems that work, even when no one's watching. The irony here is Minnesota Democrats have made protecting democracy their slogan, yet their own financial house isn't even in order. How do you protect democracy if you cannot even protect taxpayer dollars? We just have to call it what it is. It is a moral failure, because this isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about trust. Every dollar stolen from a children's meal program or an autism clinic is a dollar stolen from families who truly needed help. But in January of this year, Tim Walz held a press conference to address the raging fraud happening in Minnesota. Take a listen.
And one of the things Minnesota is well known for is a state that takes care of its people. We are known for having programs that enhance people's lives. They're known to be generous in what they do, and they have results, whether it be the top healthcare state or some of the best outcomes for children. Those programs make a difference. But like anything we see, as we see government programs or non-governmental programs, opportunity for fraud is always present. And as we've seen in Minnesota, and as the FBI has said, an increase of 21% of these financial crimes across the country from 22 and 23, we have to take that seriously. And while we are a generous state, we need to be very clear. And I think when people read this, these are not just financial crimes against the state and the taxpayers of Minnesota. These are crimes against children. And what we've seen in Minnesota is these crimes have basically targeted programs that either feed children or help children in need, like we've seen recently with autism services. It's simply unacceptable. It's maddening. And it makes myself and Minnesotans angry about this. And while we've worked and we've seen progress on this, I think here in Minnesota, we have the opportunity to both continue to be that generous state, continue to have programs that show results, but also make sure that the safeguards are in place to make sure that happens. So today, I'm going to use the analogy we used a little bit with COVID on this. We're turning the dial. And the dial on this is yes, we're going to serve the people of Minnesota, but there needs to be a healthy sense of skepticism, especially around people who have been identified as being involved in these types of fraud schemes that have been out there.
And now the Minnesota governor's office just got called out for widespread financial mismanagement. You cannot make this stuff up. They need to get rid of Walz as soon as possible. Minnesotans deserve more than press releases claiming that we fixed it. They deserve proof. They deserve resignations where needed. And they deserve a state government that audits itself with the same rigor it applies to small businesses. But what do you think? Is this incompetence or corruption? And at what point should a governor be held personally responsible for mismanagement under their watch? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you gotten any value from this video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.